dynamic stuff and stuff I haven't finished on Thursday, and start with some newer material. But the newer material today is really setting the stage for next week. I don't know how much I'll be able to get to, but to the extent I can get to that, that's really for next week. And I will not, I'll tell you that stuff beyond rotational dynamics and statics, which we'll do today. Beyond that, we won't go as far as the third exam is concerned. So stuff beyond statics, which we'll do today, will be in the final, along with everything else. That will be rolled in as a comprehensive exam. Simply because I don't think you'll have enough time to absorb the material and do calculations with it. Okay? Any questions so far? I think I'm going to put it down and do it.
It's harder to move if you're moving.
Yeah.
How did you, I think you know about it, but how did you figure out the work? I mean, I understood how to go through the installation at first, but I just didn't understand why exactly we used that instead of just doing adding multiples.
I didn't understand your question really well. I was also very tired. I had just driven in from Columbus in the snowstorm. No, but now I'm not tired. When I saw your email, my brain was functioning at 10% capacity. Tell me again the problem.
I forgot exactly how to do the summation of all the differences.
Oh, that's very easy. First of all, torque is, you multiply the force with the perpendicular distance from the axis. Okay? So, whatever it is that you have, you are either told or you determine about which point you're going to take torque. That's a choice you make, or it's a choice that is given to you in the problem. Okay? So, suppose this is the point, some arbitrary point. And suppose you have a force going there. Forces can be translated. Okay? So I drag this force in such a way that I can drop a perpendicular from this point onto this force. This is the tricky part. So if the force is there, you can't possibly drop a perpendicular from here to there, right? You simply don't have enough angular flexibility to do that. But forces can be parallel translated, you know that. So I can bring this force, I can drag this force all the way to here. So now I can actually drop a perpendicular. Alright? So the force I said is this way. This is the perpendicular distance. So if I multiply my force with the perpendicular distance, forget about vectors right now, that's going to give me the magnitude of the torque. Okay? So now what will happen is, I've already told you force is this way and this is the fixed point. So imagine you have a body on which you're applying the force this way and that's a fixed point. The body is going to go around like that, right? So torque would therefore be in that direction, it will be counterclockwise. That's how you calculate that. So it's very simple. And now as far as multiple torques are concerned, you add, let's say, torques in one direction with the torques in the other direction with an appropriate sign. Simply a numerical scalar addition. Right? Yeah.
Power and impulse.
Huh?
Power and impulse.
Yeah, I'll talk about that. Those are relatively small things. Yes.
So it's always going to have inside
So that is really gobbling up the sine theta in that process, right? So if you are here, then you have to first figure out the theta, right? This is R. So R is that way. Theta is that way. R is that way. Force is that way. So theta is here. So sine theta would be the component of the force if it's in this direction that way. So you can So it's going to give you the same result. Yes.
Why do you say?
Because I just did the sine theta process physically for you in this case. It's not trivial to see it. But if you do r sine theta, what you are actually doing is you're actually mathematically doing the perpendicular. That's what I'm trying to say. Alright? So let's draw a picture. So for example, this is the point, and this is where you have the force. So here I can draw a perpendicular. And this is going to be, let's say, my r, and this is going to be my f, and I just multiply the two. So the easiest thing to do is to take the force and parallel translate it, because you can do that with vectors in such a way that you can draw a perpendicular and forget about the sign, if you can. So if this is what is confusing you, just do it this way. And in all the problems I've assigned you guys, you pretty much have to do it this way. That's why I assigned them intentionally. Do you still have questions on this? This is something you have to actually think through a little bit, because the perpendicular distance piece is quite tricky, and you can easily make a mistake if you are not 100% on top. But the whole idea is that you should be able to drop a perpendicular onto the force. And for that you need to move back, because you cannot make this force this, you cannot change its angle. The angle is set in stone. But you can parallel translate it anywhere you want, and bring it to the point where you can drop the perpendicular. Alright? Always do it that way, because I always do it that way. And that's the easiest way without making unnecessary trig errors and so on. Any other questions? Okay. Alright, so this is important stuff. I'm glad we got that covered, because I was going to send you an email later today. So what happens to torque when it's on a perfectly slippery surface? That's something you need to answer now. If you are on a slippery surface, perfectly slippery surface, what happens to your torque? Zero? You're not sure? You're sure? Alright, yes. Huh? Decrease? Yeah, technically you were right, but that's why I said perfectly slippery surface. That makes it zero, right? Because if you hit an ice sheet, then there is no friction. We know that when you have a surface, for you to be able to get traction on the surface, you have to have friction. The friction force goes away, then you cannot generate a torque. And on a perfectly slippery icy surface, your friction force goes away. So this is very important. These are things that you take by inference from all the stuff we are doing, and that requires a bit of an intellectual capital to go in there for figuring these out. I've been doing these in problems and I've made statements in class, but just make sure that you absorb them well. The other thing that I should state very loudly is that when we did rotational kinematics, which was really the previous chapter, in rotational kinematics, the focus was on solving the same kind of problems that we did in rotational dynamics. Okay? But the difference was, in rotational kinematics, we were not using the torque equation. We were using the kinematic relations between theta, omega, and alpha, right? We were using energy conservation, which happens to be an extremely powerful tool. So, in most problems that you'll be given in the third exam, as well as in the finals concerning this, you will be told which way to go. Whether you should be doing the problem using rotational dynamical approach, which means you set up the force equation and the torque equation, or whether you should be solving the problem using rotational kinematics and or energy conservation and or work energy theorem. So that's a separate bucket. So these rotational dynamics problems look the same. At the end of the day, even the answers are the same in quite a few of the problems that we have done. However, in one case, you are using kinematic equations and energy conservation. In the other case, you are actually using rotational dynamical equations, which means you are using the force equations and the torque equations. And of course, rotational dynamics is what we are finishing up now. That's a little bit harder, and therefore yours being able to set up the force and torque equations accurately is key to mastering this particular chapter, which is what I want to get to. All right, so let me just start with a few things, and I just wanted, but before that, we had 18 people respond, if I recall correctly, to sensors for the period. However, only 10 people eventually ended up with the sensors. I don't know what happened to the other 8 people, but that has cut down on the amount of data collected. So on next Tuesday, Hai Zheng would be here, and she would be looking for 10 more volunteers to carry through until May 15th. We need a 21-day period of sleep data. So I need 10 more volunteers. So are there anybody who wants to be a volunteer? Can you give me a show of hands? Only 3 people? 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 2 more. 9. I counted you, didn't I? I need one. Okay. All right. So don't forget, okay? So I will forget everything because my memory is now literally 10 minutes after I've done something. I forget everything. It is good for me because then my blood pressure goes down. But what happens is that I don't remember shit after I get out of class. Then I have to really kind of go back and look what I did. So the thing is that remember who you are. Remember you volunteer, and it is volunteer. So if anybody else wants to volunteer, there probably are many sensors. So if there's more than 10, you are more than welcome. More data, the better for us. But to make this cycle of study go through properly, we would need a sample size which isn't too small. So next Tuesday, Hai Zheng would be here. But you may not have met her. She's the senior PhD student on the project. She's very good. She actually ran it last time completely. So she would be here first thing on Tuesday, next Tuesday, and she would do 2 things. She would first of all write down who you guys are and hand out the sensors and associate your name with the sensor number, because once you have been given out and your data goes into a database, everything becomes blind and anonymous. So only Hai Zheng knows who are you in terms of a number. So everything is anonymous. I don't know, generally speaking, who is doing what, or neither does Eddie, who is the PI on the project. So usually only one person who has the university. We all have the university permissions, but all of us who run this. But if Hai Zheng is doing it, then she's the one who only can unblind once you have signed up and the sensor number has been given. So it's completely private. You're already selling all your data to all the phone companies that you don't even know about. So this is the least amount of civil service you can do. And that is very, very helpful for us and for the future generation of kids. All right, with that, if we get started, there's a simple problem that I think I assigned this problem, but I want to do it very quickly. You have a yo-yo. So here you have a yo-yo. And a yo-yo at some level A. Okay? And you let it go down. And so at a later time, it ends up being here. Like that. Alright? So you are told the mass of this thing is m, the radius is r. So this is a disk, because yo-yos are normally disks, so we know it's 1/2 mr squared, right? So that's not a big surprise. But the way I'm going to do this problem is simply using energy conservation. So I'm using really rotational kinematics and energy conservation approach. So the total energy at this point, suppose it's going down from some ground level, and this height is h. Okay? So So the total energy at A is going to be clearly mgh. It is not started to rotate yet, because it's not going down yet. And now it keeps going down and finally reaches this point B. And you want to find out what is the angular speed at B and what is the velocity at B and so on and so forth of the system. So the very easy thing to do is the total energy at B is something you can immediately calculate, because at this point there is no potential energy, H is 0. So everything is kinetic, and you have to remember that now you have two pieces to kinetic energy. One is the translational piece, 1/2 mv squared. It's actually the velocity of the center of mass over here as it hits the lowest level. That's the velocity of the center of mass, Vb. And then you have the energy due to the rotational aspect of it, which would be 1/2 I, which is the moment of inertia, and the angular speed when it ends up at B. Okay? So that's your formula. The kinetic energy has two pieces. Don't you ever forget that. If you do, then there'll be harsh consequences. So you know that for it to go down, if you're a good yo-yo player, most of you I bet are not. So then Vb should be equal to R times omega B. That would be the no slipping condition. So the reason why yo-yos are complicated, have anybody played with a yo-yo here? You guys are the most boring bunch I've ever seen. Kevin doesn't count, he's old for this. So, 9 people? Seriously? You need more fun in your life. This is the most boring group of people I've ever seen. I used to have like 10 yo-yos. In fact, what was very funny was one of the 101 students, after the class finished, actually gifted me a yo-yo. I have a yo-yo in my office if you want to play with it. Just to mark up, just to mark up your bucket list. If it is in your bucket list. Alright, so Vb is R omega B, okay? So in other words, you can do this calculation now. I is 1/2 mr squared. So therefore I have mgh, which is what's happening at A, equal to 1/2 m, depends on what I want to find. I guess I want to find Vb. So 1/2 m Vb squared, so I don't touch this guy, plus 1/2 I is 1/2 mr squared because it's a disk. And then I have omega squared, and omega squared is Vb over r squared. So I'll get an r squared here. I already have an r squared, so I can get rid of this. So it's very simple now. I've almost solved the problem. Let me mark up this board so I can write, I can get rid of all the masses. Because everybody has a mass. There you go. And so I should be able to write GH is equal to 1/2 Vb squared plus 1/4 Vb squared. And 1/2 plus 1/4 is basically 3/4, right? This is 2/4 plus 1/4, 3/4. So therefore GH is 3/4 Vb squared. And since I know G and I know H, I can find what Vb is. It's 4/3 GH square root. So therefore, here. So therefore, the final velocity Vb is going to be 4/3 GH square root. What would have been the final velocity had I just dropped the yo-yo code? No, that's dimensionally incorrect. If I just drop the yo-yo, we went through this exercise on last Tuesday. If I just drop this job, which I won't, but if I did that, what would be the final velocity as it's sitting there? Huh? Square root of 2gh. So square root of 2gh, whatever is the final velocity if I just drop it. Now that the yo-yo is actually rolling down, you can see the number is quite different. So you actually get 4/3. 4/3 is like 1.3 gh square root instead of 2. So actually the velocity is less. It should be based upon your personal experience. If you're actually rolling a yo-yo down, that's exactly what happens. You have to come down more slowly. All right. Always be careful about checking your units and making sure the left side of the equation and the right side of the equation are dimensionally correct. Because, let me repeat one more time, you're going to make the dumbest mistakes you have ever done. Okay, I do the same. So this is no hate against you. The difference between you and me is I am better at catching my mistakes than you are. And one of the tricks in catching my mistakes, which you often would be too lazy to apply, is to once you write your equations down, make sure it's dimensionally correct. That's very, very important, especially when you do something like a torque equation, because you are not familiar with it. Your general level of being able to do these problems is developing. So it's very important that you don't go lazy over this. All right. So I want to bring up the issue of work done during rotational movement. We all know that work done is defined as a dot product of the force times the distance. That we have done for a while, right? D being the distance along which the force acts. Yes?
So it's all the
H, yes.
I think it's the mass point of the motor. It's not
Right.
So you see the beam. It's the ground.
Oh, I see. Yeah, no, that's a legitimate point. I implicitly mean, yeah, you're right. This is from here. So the zero level is almost always here. Actual zero level is here, but this is something that is very minor, right? Unless you have an enormous yo-yo, you shouldn't have a problem. But you are right. The actual distance is from center of mass to there. Yeah. All right. So we all know that work done is done. So therefore, work done is force times distance. And so if I have something rotating, let's say I have a wheel, okay, and I apply a force downward. The force is F, and this radius is R. And because of the application of this force, this radius ends up being here, and this wheel moves by this amount, delta theta. This is delta theta. Okay? Because in angular motion, the corresponding variable for displacement x is theta, right? So I can't really use x like I did before, I have to use a theta. So the work done therefore, let's call it delta W, which is force times distance. In this case, it's going to be force times distance, and the distance is going to be this much, this amount. Let me put it in blue or something, green, some weird color. So this is the distance, okay? This is the distance. So therefore, what happens is that I should be able to write this distance as r times delta theta. Therefore, this is r times delta. Okay? Very simple. Force times distance is r times the distance. So this is the distance by which every point of this rigid body is actually moving. So r times delta theta. So therefore, I should be able to write this as f times r, very simply, times delta theta. And I know that F times R, in this case, would actually give me the magnitude of the torque. So therefore, this now becomes torque times delta theta. So delta W, work done in this problem, is going to be torque times delta. So you might be asked in a standard rotational dynamical problem, what is the work done as a wheel rotates? I can ask you, for example, that you are driving your car as the wheel is rotating. How much work does a road friction force do on your car's wheel then? And therefore, for that, you have to be able to figure out first what is the torque, which should be the friction force from the road applied at the point of contact to the wheel with distance r, right? Along with delta theta, which is how much this wheel has turned. So that's a real example of how you calculate the work done in this case. All right. There's a very interesting way at this point, a very simple way, to introduce what we call power. Power has a very simple way of entering into physics calculations and engineering calculations. Power has to do with how quickly you're doing the work. How quickly you're doing the work. So this is not something we think of when we think of power. We use the word power somewhat differently a lot of times in our regular vocabulary. But power specifically means how quickly you can do the work. So therefore, power by definition is amount of work done, delta W, divided by the amount of time involved, delta T. Very simple stuff. These are things I didn't do because they are easy to do, and I feel you guys are going to have great difficulty doing this. So therefore, I should be able to write this delta W, I should be able to write as tau delta theta, right? And then I should be able to divide that by delta T and make it look more pretty and more pertinent, and that makes it into tau times omega. Okay? So if you know tau and if you know omega, you actually can directly compute the power very easily for a rotational problem. Okay, let me now ask you a question. We have been doing this momentum conservation problems, and I introduced the idea of angular momentum conservation. Meaning that if there is no net torque, implies angular momentum is conserved, meaning is constant in whatever processes the system may be going through, and angular momentum will define as the equivalent of mass, which is I, and the equivalent of velocity, which is the angular velocity. So this was angular momentum. So mathematically this meant initial angular momentum is same as final angular momentum of your system if and only if the torque tau is equal to 0. So this is something that we introduced last time and we dealt with on Thursday. Now, one of the problems that I alluded to was the problem of somebody who is, let's say, ice dancing or something. You don't have to necessarily be on ice, and your hands are spread out, both hands should be from length. You are rotating, right? You have a certain angular momentum, which is your axis. So as far as your hands are concerned, the distance of the mass points here in your hands are quite far from the axis, right? That's this distance. Your legs also, let's say, are somewhat far from the axis. So as far as the calculation of the moment of inertia is concerned, how you how you stretch your hands out or whatever it is that you do actually plays an important role in what your moment of inertia turns out to be. So let's say this is the scenario. We call this moment of inertia here I1, and we call your rotational and the angular velocity in this case omega 1. And then it turns out, as I pointed out last night, suppose you don't change your legs, but you fold your hands and make it like that. Then of course, the hand is folded, so your moment of inertia should go down. That means now you have a different moment of inertia, call it I final. And as you know, what would happen is you would actually be rotating faster. So this would be omega final. But since there is no net torque that has been applied, you didn't apply a torque really. Torque is an external force that actually makes you go faster or slows you down. That's not there. And since this is on ice, so there is no friction, I can write I initial, omega initial as I final, omega final. So if I argue that I initial is greater than I final, because I folded my hands, so my moment of inertia goes down, then that would imply that omega final is must be greater than omega initial. Very simple stuff. I'm not doing anything terribly complicated, but this is the concept. That's the concept that we did last time. So you can now build on it. There are several interesting problems that one can do. For example, I asked you guys if anybody ever were on a merry-go-round, and the boring people that you guys are, I understood that almost no one has been on a merry-go-round. Am I wrong? I think you were on the merry-go-round. James was. See?
We're doing a whole lot of carousel in Buffalo.
What?
We're doing a whole lot of carousel, we should be on this.
Yeah, and not only that, every decade you go to your merry-go-round. So how? Who is coming in now? Oh, you had slipped out. Have you ever been on a merry-go-round? Have you ever been on a merry-go-round? Okay, there is one more person who is not as boring as the rest of you. But if you have been on a merry-go-round, you should be able to solve this problem. That's why I was asking those questions. So now you see, the moment of inertia here is I1 right now, the disk rotating, and then there is an omega 1, right, initially. And here you are. So this is particularly for those who have never been on a merry-go-round. Somebody ran away. Here you are. And you decide to jump onto the merry-go-round. Okay? So what happens to the merry-go-round? Does it slow down? Does it speed up? What happens? Only those who haven't been on the merry-go-round can answer this question. Huh? You have never been on a merry-go-round, right? Yes. It'll slow down. Well, obviously now that speed up didn't work. But I guess you can raise your hands in all fairness. Yeah, right. You'll slow down. The reason why you slow down is because suppose you have a certain man and child, and you jump onto the merry-go-round, which is the right way to get onto a moving merry-go-round. If you haven't done that, then you should figure it out yourself. If you actually, okay, so we'll come to that. So, you see, I was a very stupid kid. So I got into merry-go-rounds the wrong way. I got into buses the wrong way. I didn't fall, but I had very interesting experiences. So that's how I became a physicist, because then I realized the forces were very important. But at any rate, if you jump onto this place, you have a certain mass times child, and you end up being at a certain distance, certain perpendicular distance, whatever, from the axis. Perpendicular is not the right word for this. So then, obviously, your moment of inertia would be mass child times r child squared, right? So now your I2, the I2 of the whole system would be I1 plus mass child plus r child squared. Because you're just a mass balance. So therefore, this is going to be your moment of inertia of the whole merry-go-round after you have got onto it. And therefore now, your omega 2 would be slightly different than omega 1. But clearly, by the argument that I advanced in the previous example, I1 omega 1 is equal to I2 omega 2. So this thing is more than that, because this number is greater than 0. That means omega 2, therefore must be less than omega 1. Omega around means low. So Sylvia, you have absolutely every reason to get onto a merry-go-round later today. You figure out exactly what happens to you because you get the wrong answer. Alright. So, alright. So the reason why I said that you should hop onto the merry-go-round, you're better off hopping onto the merry-go-round and closer to the center. I didn't say that, but I'm saying that now. That is the safest way to get onto the merry-go-round. Because if you end up being here, right, the moment of inertial change in the rotating disk is going to be high, because this number is going to be larger, which means it's going to slow down quite a bit, which means your body will tend to continue with the original omega 1, but it has immediately slowed down to omega 2, which means there's a strong deceleration that will come into play, which means you'll trip. So this is the reason why getting onto a merry-go-round, as inviting as it may be when you get onto a merry-go-round, the dumbest thing you can do is get onto the edge of the merry-go-round, because that increases the change in moment of inertia to the max, which means that deceleration is the max, which means you're almost certain to have an interesting experience. Alright, so that was an easy thing. Now let me do something that is very hard. So much for fun. I'm entering the regime of statics. Okay? So this stuff is hard. When I say hard, I mean hard. I did not talk about the issue of static equilibrium for extended objects or for, let's say, rigid bodies. The static equilibrium for rigid bodies is a nasty one. How many of you have climbed on a ladder? Normal ladder. Keep your hands up. I just want to identify the clowns who have never climbed on a ladder. You have never climbed on a ladder? What were you doing with your hands? How many of you have never climbed on a freaking ladder? Catch that guy with the black cap. What is he doing over there? Catch him. What are you doing? Huh? You are not paying attention to class. So you don't get a quiz today. You are out of the equation. How many of you have never climbed the ladder again? Raise your hand again. You can. I give up. I was going to ask those who have never climbed on a ladder to answer this question, but I will now ask everybody who has climbed on a ladder to answer. So this is your ladder, okay? This is your ladder. Suppose this is the wall, and this is the ladder. I've drawn the side view of the ladder, and this is the weight W of the ladder. Okay? And the ladder is of length L. Alright? And the ladder makes some angle, let's say theta, with the horizon. Alright. Now we have to talk about, and this is very non-trivial, what are the forces acting on the ladder other than W, which is the easiest thing to find. So who can tell me some of the forces that are acting on the ladder? Friction will be where? Around? No friction here? It's going to go that way?
From the wall.
Wall is here.
The wall.
Okay. What about you?
Gravity.
Gravity I have already taken into account. Yes, you have that. Yes.
Normal force
Where?
from the center of the ladder upwards.
So we have identified some of them. There is a friction force here, right? Because suppose here you are trying to climb onto the ladder. Looks like a monkey actually. Let's say a monkey trying to climb onto the ladder. Then the ladder will tend to slip in which direction? Huh? That way. So if monkey is climbing onto the ladder is going to slip in that direction, friction force then must be in this direction, right? So let's say there is a friction force here. S for surface, okay? Now, if ladder will slip in that direction, then there should be a friction force here as well. But it turns out, if you think about this problem carefully, then this friction force isn't so much. So this friction plays a lesser role than that friction. This monkey is going to fall if there is ice here. That's a guarantee. Okay? But this monkey may not fall if there is ice on the wall. If this is okay, the monkey is fine. So therefore, from that argument alone, you can make the case that this friction is going to be more than that friction. So I can ignore that friction. The other thing is that there's got to be a normal force because the net downward force. The normal force is going to act at this point of contact. There's one normal force here. And because this ladder is pressing on that wall, you certainly do expect the normal force to be here. So this part I will call, not move the names, I will call it normal force 2, and I will call this one normal force 1. So at this point, if I actually have the monkey, I have to take into account the mass of the monkey and the location of the monkey. So in my first cut, I will let the monkey go for now. I'll bring the monkey back. So now that we label the points, I will call this point A, I will call this point B, okay, this point is B, and I'll call this point C. So I want to first set up the force equations. I want this to be in equilibrium or a set of the force equations because it's a problem in two dimensions. You have forces along the x direction and you have forces along the y direction. You will have two force equations. So let's say x force, you set up the force along the x direction. So for you to have equilibrium, the net force along x direction must be 0. That's very important. You can see that Fs is to the right, I'll call it plus, and N1 is to the left. I call it minus, and these two must be 0, otherwise there is an unbalanced x force, or unbalanced force along the x-axis. So let's do the same thing for y. So in this case, I can already see that as far as y-axis is concerned, I have a normal force N2, right, up direction, and then minus W in the down direction. And these two must be balanced. So this gives me the force equilibrium condition. This gives me the force equilibrium. Any questions? So now you see if I want to put the monkey back in, I got to put in the mass of the monkey, Mm. So the weight downward that will come in would be mass of the monkey times g, right? And the monkey is in some location. I'll also have to take that into account. Let's say monkey is at some location, small m. So in that case, what will happen is my y equation will have to be upgraded for the monkey. So I will have M2 still there, minus W, which is for the ladder, minus M monkey times C. That should be 0, right? So that's the monkey version. Now it is important to get the torque equation. The reason why the torque equation is important is because if you think about it, I don't know if you've ever really had a ladder slip on you. I actually have had one. It's a pretty scary thing. What happens, of course, is that the ladder would go that way, typically. Unless somebody pushes you, or somebody kicks you here in the wrong direction, you will unlikely be going like that, which is what happens in movies sometimes, but that's not real. Most of the time, people would fall like that. So that means that there is a net tendency, in this case, to have a torque in the clockwise direction. So if you have a torque in the clockwise direction, if you have one, then you will certainly fall. So for you to be in equilibrium, which means that you don't want to fall, your net torque must be zero. That's the other condition, the torque equation. Your net torque must be zero. So let's get on to this difficult business of doing the torque. Now, so first I do the no monkey version. Then you can do the monkey version yourself. No monkey version of the torque equation is actually not much simpler. As I said, you can take torque about any axis, okay, in general. So if you want to make sure that your net torque is zero, about which point you want to take the torque doesn't matter. So in other words, you choose the point about which you take the torque according to your convenience. All right. So if you take the torque according to your convenience, that means you want to take the torque about a point such that most torques go away. If most torques don't go away, then you have just complicated your life for nothing. So in this case, which is the point to which I have most forces, A, B or C? A, right? I have two forces going to A. So if I take A as my point about which I'll calculate the torque, that necessarily means that the perpendicular distance between A and force of friction Fs is going to be zero because it's passing through the point, right? And in this case, this also passes through A. Again, forces can be parallel translated, which means that these two forces, M2 and Fs, will not be contributing any torque. So I've killed off torque contributions from these two forces, but don't worry, we have enough to deal with. We have certainly W to deal with. So let me now draw this picture separately here. So I'm taking torque about A. So let me not worry about Fs and N for now. I have W here. So going back to the question that James had asked, W is like this. I draw a line through W, which is basically equivalent to parallel translating W along this line anywhere I want, because that doesn't change the physics of the problem. So if I draw this line, and this is where 99% of you who are doing things other than what you're supposed to be doing will make a mistake, and I will kill you for it. This is the perpendicular distance of interest, even though the forces are. For exactly the reason that I told you. So therefore, the torque that's going to come around from this guy, this is theta. This I said is L. So this is going to be L cosine theta. So therefore, one of the torques then will be L over 2 cosine of theta times W. And this torque is going to take you in the clockwise direction. Yeah, clockwise torque. I'll write at the bottom with the minus. The other force that didn't go away was N1. Now look at how I calculate the perpendicular distance for N1. What happened?
Yeah, you wanted to know why it was L.
Why what?
It was L over 2.
L over 2 because the center of mass is at. So here, there won't be an L over 2, I promise you. Because now you see, this is N1. So I can draw a line like this, which passes through N1 and it's parallel to N1. And then this becomes the perpendicular distance. This is the perpendicular. This distance now, so this is L, and this is theta. So this distance here is obviously L sine of theta. So therefore the other torque, and this force is that way, this is the point, so the rotation will be counterclockwise. So I can make it minus if you will, or the other way around, doesn't matter. L sine theta times N1. If you want to use the clockwise as minus and counterclockwise as plus, this is normally the convention I myself use, then this would be your torque equation for the low monkey fluid. So this is the problem. This is how you set up this problem. Now let's do it with the monkey. So with the monkey, the only difference is that you now have another force that's coming in. So I'll just make a simple cartoon to make my life easier. This is W. Monkey is here, let's say. And let's say this distance where the monkey is at is small l. So this is monkey, so mmg, and that's here. So therefore the torque equation will now get altered. The torque equation, monkey versions. Okay? So here I'll obviously have the L over 2 sine theta piece with W. But now also I'll have minus L sine theta piece. Sorry, why did I say sine theta? And why did nobody stop me? This is cos theta. And this is also cos theta. This is the mmg. This is the monkey weight. Both are the same sign because both are clockwise. And then you have plus L sine theta times N1, and that's equal to 0. That's the monkey weight. Any questions? So this is where most of you will have trouble. Yes?
What's CW and CCW? Like what is
CW is clockwise,
Okay.
counterclockwise. Okay? Let's do another torque problem. This is not a problem, I just set it up, I didn't give any numbers. But the point is, obviously you will be asked to find something, and those are your relevant equations. And you need the 2 force equations and 1 torque equation. So you're setting up typically 3 equations in these torque problems. Okay? So let's do this problem. It's a very standard problem. You have a wall, okay, and from that wall you are hanging, let's say, some kind of a shelf outward. Now, if you put a shelf in the wall like that, you have some kind of support. Either you have to give a support here with screws, or let's say you want to be a little bit more fancy, you want to put in some kind of a string or a cord to hold it the way I show you. Again, let's give the thing name. So let's call it point A, point B, point C. And now let's say that I have a certain weight of this shell. And suppose the weight of this shell is 150 newtons. And suppose I tell you that this shell, this side of the shell is 4 meters. It's about 12 feet in all. And suppose I also tell you that this side, let's say, this string is 5 meters long. So what would be this side? 3. So always remember that Pythagoras theorem controls the life of right angle triangles. So if this guy is 4 and this guy is 5, this has got to be 3 because that's the only way you have 3 squared is 9, 4 squared is 16, 16 plus 9 is 25. If you're going to satisfy Pythagoras theorem, you don't really have control, right? You are done the moment you, in fact, when you say one side is 5, you are almost done already. Well, not entirely, but you can be. Or if you say one side is 4, then for sure you are pretty much done. Anyway, so unless you want to really complicate your life. So this is what you have. So as far as the forces are concerned, there will be a tension here, T. And let's say I hang something here, and that is 300 newtons, additional force. So in this case, what happens? So what happens is a little bit non-trivial here. Actually, it's more complex than the regular ladder problem. Where did you come from? You are not in my class. Out. You are not welcome here. So, is this your friend, David? Somebody you know? What is he doing here? What did he tell you? So what happens is that you have this thing that you have found, but you know very well that if this is very heavy, let's say, it's going to damage the wall, right? If you are going to put a bookshelf on your drywall, you don't put a 2-ton bookshelf on your drywall, right? Because you're going to break the drywall. You know that. So similar thing goes on here, that the wall actually in this region you feel forces. And you don't know what these forces are. And oftentimes in these problems, you actually have to figure out what these forces are. So, I don't know what the forces are. I don't even know which direction they are. This is going to kind of make a torque that way, so maybe the forces are this way, but I can't really tell because there is also a support here. So let me, for the sake of argument, assume that I have a force in the upward direction and I have a force in the horizontal direction. Let me call this h sub y, horizontal y, and let me call this h sub x. Oftentimes in these problems, you might be asked to find out what h sub y and h sub x are. So, what are the force equations going to look like? Well, it's very simple, because as far as the horizontal forces are concerned, I have called this angle theta, so I have a t sine theta here. I have a t cosine theta going that way. So horizontal forces are going to be hx to the right, so plus minus t cosine of theta to the left, right? So this is going to be a very, very simple equation that you will get along the x direction. Along the y direction, on the other hand, you got t sine theta going upward. You got, let me give this name. Let me call this force what I call it. I didn't give it any name. Okay, so I have t sine theta upward minus 150 newton, which is the weight of the shelf, minus 300 newton, and then I have hy, which is also up, equal to 0. So these are my force equations now. Okay? So you see, these problems are not so simple. So what is the torque equation? So let me find out from you, where would you select the torque, select the point about which you take the torque? To which point your maximum number of forces passing? Look at the figure. Huh? B?
B.
Well, through A we have t sine theta and we have the additional force, the 300 Newton force. Through B we have hx and hy and, you missed that one, t cos theta. Look at it. T cos theta is along the bar, right? And that is going to pass directly through B if you extrapolate that. So whenever you see these forces, it is a smart idea to actually draw these lines just to make sure. So t cos theta is going to pass through this point. Hx and Hy are also passing through. So therefore B is the better point than A because B has 3 forces passing through it and therefore that will minimize the torque the most. Alright? So I'll just write down the torque equation. Actually, I put the torque equation about point A in my calculation. I think I will just actually both of them. Alright. Anyway, so let's take the torque about point B. So about B. So I have this force. So 300 newtons times 4 meters. Okay, these are the distances. This torque is in the clockwise direction. So therefore, CW. I have another torque from 150, also in the clockwise direction. So 150 newton times 2 meters, also in the clockwise direction. CW. And I have T sine theta going the other way. Minus T sine theta times 4 meters, and these 3 would go away. So that's my torque equation. At this point, actually, I can find everything. I can find the tension T, the H sub x, and the H sub y, because I have 3 equations and 3 unknowns. So we can finish that later. I'll give you some simple problems of this kind in the third exam as well. All right, let's go to the quiz now. Get rid of this stuff, and we go to this.